I grew up skiing with my family. It was just something that we did on the weekends, and I was in the Jackrabbit program. I remember skiing on this super beat up pair of old fish scales that I just take everywhere. Weekends, like, me and my family would just go out and ski the trails. It was kind of something we just did together. I didn't always love skiing. There was a lot of bribery involved, like gummy bears, cookies, hot chocolate at the end to actually get me to go out there and actually enjoy the ski. As I got older, I did actually start to enjoy it more, and I mean, that's why I'm here today. The shift for me happened probably when I was around 13, 14. What really got me to enjoy racing was it was something that I did with my friends. I mean, the ski club at Larch Hills was super big at that point, and a lot of my friends were part of it, and so just hanging out with people on the weekends and racing and just having fun, seeing people from other clubs, I think that was always a highlight of the winter. At that age, I was about to head to my first nationals in Whitehorse, Yukon. I was super excited. I mean, my entire team was going, and it was going to be this super fun experience with all my friends, kind of like a camp with racing too. And just being there and watching the best in Canada compete was a super transformative experience, and really made me believe wow, this is actually really fun. I want to be like them. After coming home from nationals, I felt super inspired, and I started training super hard. And it was shortly after that my accident happened. I had my accident in woodshop class. It was almost the end of the school year, and I was working on an extra project. Everything changed for me that day. My wood just kicked back on the machine, and I was pushing the wood into the machine, and unfortunately my hand got stuck and I lost 4 fingers on my left hand. For me, it felt like my life had just ended. I mean, I had just lost 4 fingers on my left hand. I felt like I would never be able to ski again, let alone do the simplest task. That was a really low point in my life. I spent about a week in the hospital. It wasn't until after that week that I began to think wow, is this really all I'm going to be doing with my life? Just sitting in a hospital bed, feeling bad for myself. My teammates and my coaches at the time really tried to get me back into sport and get me going again, just so I'd have something else in my life to focus on. And I think that was a really important part of my recovery. I think just the fact that I was training again with the team and being around other people and had something else to focus on to really pull me through that traumatic incident was a really, really good thing. It wasn't until a couple months after my accident that my club coach actually reached out to Kate Boyd, wondering about the possibility of me skiing para-Nordic instead of able-bodied. And it wasn't until that point that I realized that there was actually another route I could take. And so that fall, I went to the para development camp held here in Canmore, and it was a really cool experience to see athletes from around Canada with all sorts of disabilities skiing and loving it. That was probably the first time I actually kind of embraced skiing with one pole. After that camp was when I realized that I had an actual shot of making the team for the 2018 Paralympics. It became something that I really wanted to focus on. I knew I had a year and a half to train and get better at skiing with one pole because, I mean, the technique it was so much different than I was used to being an able-bodied skier before. I began just coming out to Canmore more often to train with the development team. Just went to different races around Canada trying to gain more experience with one pole. It wasn't until the Paralympic Games that I really began to become a bit more accepting of my injury. I had been wearing a bandage up until that point because I didn't want people looking at my hand. But at the Paralympic Games, I started taking it off, and at first I would have my hand in my pocket all the time, and then it started to come out more and more. I mean, today I don't wear a bandage or anything. I don't care if people look at my hand. I am who I am, but at that point, that was a real turning point for me. At the Games, I had no idea where I would end up in the races. I ended up winning a bronze medal in the sprint, my second race of the Paralympic Games. And that was a pretty cool moment. My mom actually came to Korea with me too, and she was watching, and she literally hopped over several barriers just to give me a hug at the finish line, and I think that was a pretty special moment. Since then, I've competed in 2 Paralympic Games and won 7 Paralympic medals. I know that I want to continue doing this. I've got several more games in me. One of my biggest inspirations has been Mckeever. I first met him when I was 12 actually. He was in my hometown for a lot bit, and I remember all my teammates from my club were asking for signatures and photos, and I had no idea who Brian was. But after that, like once I learned his story and who he was, he became a huge role model for me. I mean, he was an idol. I felt so lucky a couple years later when I became his teammate, and now he's my coach, and I get to work with him and learn from him every day, and I just feel so lucky. I feel so lucky to be part of such an amazing team. Coaches, teammates, support staff, we all share common goals and passions and a love for the sport. We're continuously growing and learning as a team, and I believe that we have the potential to be the best team in the world. I believe.